It's great to have you on the program, Shando, I beg your pardon, and thanks very much for joining us. It becomes a complex issue for those who are newly divorced, because this will be not only the first festive season that they need to co-parent, but a festive season with a difference, so to speak. Help us understand whether you think legislation in its current form gives enough insight to those parents, given the complexities we're dealing with now.
Ayanda, I can say that this is probably the worst time for a newly divorced parent, because there's such a focus on family unities and family being together. And of course, the memory that last Christmas we were together as a family. This is traditionally the time when some of my clients go on suicide watch. I have to constantly call them, be with them, make sure that they're okay. And as so, does legislation deal with the human emotion and the tragedy that goes with that? Ayanda, not at all. Not at all. And quite often than not, it's the father who is now sitting somewhere in a much smaller place, possibly a much poorer place, with his children crying for him, wanting to be with his children, but because there's an acrimonious divorce, there's potentially a domestic violence application floating around, an interim order was granted against him. He can't be with his children, and this is the time when the hole in the well that some parents find themselves in is just so deep that they don't see a way out, and unfortunately sometimes they engage in very, very harmful and self-destructive behavior just to stop the pain.
It's interesting you highlight the plight of fathers, because I certainly get a sense that we don't focus enough on that aspect of this important complexity. How can fathers deal with what I feel is a legislative framework that almost doesn't even acknowledge that they exist? I mean, the default position at the best of times even is that fathers wouldn't be interested to begin with, and so not much thought has been given into at least allowing the center of power to sort of move from the mother to the father throughout this time. So how best then can fathers make the most of what they're given, essentially?
Ayanda, just to start at the end of what you've just said, I think you are spot on with the problem there. I think a lot of the social ills in our country comes from fatherless homes. And of course, whenever somebody these days mentions masculinity, the word toxic comes with it. Toxic masculinity. That the mere fact that you're a man already indicates that there's something wrong with you, that you're prone to violence, that you're prone to something. And this plays through in the social consciousness and in our courts, and also in the way that our legislation is written. But if you're a father there sitting, and I've had these cases before, where you're sitting there with a phone in the one hand and a gun in the other hand, and you're not sure which one you should pick up. The suicide hotline is definitely there for you. Your friends, your attorney should definitely be there for you in that situation. And the therapy, go for therapy. And know this, you are not alone. You are not alone. You are one of thousands of fathers who are sitting there making that choice. What should they do? Can they make it through another day without their children? The fact that they're being vilified, that they've done nothing, yet they are being branded a danger to their children. So and now let me not just say it's just fathers. There are mothers who are also in the same situation.
Yeah.
But I'd say predominantly 95% of the situation, it's a father who's sitting there alone in a room with no one today.
Sure.
Let's not forget the effect on the children as well, who want their father.
Absolutely. In your line of work, are you seeing a correlation between divorce rates and suicide rates of divorcees?
I have had clients commit suicide when, for instance, the court tells them they're not allowed to see their children, and for no good reason, or sort of it gets insinuated that they are a danger to their children. I have, in those instances, have had clients commit suicide, and all the clients that I've ever had that committed suicide were men. So what the actual figures are, if divorce leads to suicide, I'm sure it does. On the list, Ayanda, on the list of 5 bad things to happen to you in your life, the first is the death of a child. The second is bankruptcy, and the third is divorce. And I've had situations when situation number 1 has led to situation number 2, which has led to situation number 3. And those people have made it through it.
Sure. Really sobering reflections at a time when, again, family is meant to be central, not least of which because we are told to stay at home in an effort to try and deal with this global health crisis. But nonetheless, I imagine there are scenarios, as you pointed out, where people do make it work. How would you say they actually get to that point, given all these complexities?
I think once they get, when a divorce is like a death of a person, and you have to go through certain stages.
Yeah.
The first is disbelief. I can't believe this is actually happening to me. Then comes the anger phase, where I cannot believe that this person has done this to me. They stood there in front of the altar of family and friends and promised to be true to me, to do everything for me. Now look at what they've done. And a lot of people get trapped in that anger phase. And if you're trapped in that anger phase, then unfortunately, the old saying is when the elephants do battle, Ayanda, the grass gets trampled, the grass being the children. Then if you start, in those two phases, you're still looking backwards, you're looking at what happened. At some stage, if you start looking forward and you start saying, okay, right, this has now happened. How do I deal with it? Then you get to the third phase, which is acceptance. And then over time, the fourth phase, which is indifference. Almost like it's something, but it happened a long time ago to somebody else. So as long as you're looking backwards and you're looking for someone to blame and you're pointing the finger, you did this to me, you did that to me. If you get trapped in those phases, and people quite often do, and with good reason. If your husband or your wife had an affair with your best friend and you're the last one to find out, everybody knew about this, you're going to feel hurt, you're going to feel betrayed, and you're going to feel angry. And people get divorced because they feel betrayed and hurt and angry. So that doesn't bring out the best in people. But a good divorce lawyer will be as a buffer between you and those emotions, and to try his best to not let those emotions creep into your court case, that you're not trying to use the legal process as a form to evict revenge. That's not what the legal process is there for. The legal process is not there for you to ruin the other side. There are children involved. The children are the weakest link here. They need to be protected. And the legal process, if you have a good divorce lawyer, that is where the process should focus, not how you're going to ruin the other person, take them for every cent they have. In that case, if you have a lawyer who helps you do that, he shouldn't be practicing law.
Yeah.
Or not matrimonial law, at least.
It's really concerning. Very quickly then, Shando, does the legal process change depending on, where we are in the year? Of course, the festive season, again, not only involves families being together, but it also involves children being at home more often than they would at any other time of the year because of things like school, Have you found new challenges crop up around the festive season for people who are divorced?
Yes, I think certainly new challenges crop up at certain times of the year, and I can say with absolute conviction, a lot of it is alcohol-based.
Oh, wow.
If it's a time when you're sitting at home and you drink a lot, and now you're already, it's been a long, frustrating year, you're under financial strain, you have booked a vacation, you were able to deal with the whole year because you thought you're going to go away on vacation, now that's been taken away from you too. You've lost that money, you've lost what little money you have, and you don't know if you're going to have a job when the year comes back again and there's school fees, etc. to pay. So it's already a pressure cooker. Now times that by 2, now times that by the children at home with you. Now add alcohol and various other substances to the mix. You are going to see an increase in domestic violence applications, absolutely.
Wow. Really, really troubling sort of reflections at this time of the year. But that's all the time we have. Thanks very much for helping us understand what really can be a difficult situation, and just one way of putting it. Shando Theron is a family lawyer at Shando Theron Incorporated, an important aspect of the festive season, compounded not least by the global health crisis we're dealing with. All right, we'll keep watching these salient issues for you throughout the AM report as we count down to Christmas.